I'm Moira Cook, and I'm District Director for the Health Department here in Addison County. We provide a variety of public health programs in our office in Middlebury. I'm also the convener of the Addison County Committee on Opiate Addiction. And we are a group of human services providers and community members, and we focus on prevention, we focus on treatment, we focus on education, and we focus on recovery efforts for those who are struggling with the disease of addiction. Today we're going to talk a bit about treatment for opiate addiction. There are several components of treatment. There's medication-assisted treatment, there's counseling, there's complementary treatment such as AccuDetox, and then there's recovery resources such as 12-step programs and recovery coaches. And those are offered by our local faith communities and the Turning Point of Addison County, which is our local recovery center in Addison County. So today I'm talking with Jessie Farnsworth. Jessie works for the Counseling Services of Addison County, and I'm just really thrilled to have you here, Jessie, to talk about what you do and what Counseling Services of Addison County does, or as we like to call it for shorter term, SESAC. So please just tell me a little bit about yourself and what you do there and what the role of the Counseling Services of Addison County is.
Sure. Thank you. It's a pleasure to be on and discuss a little bit about SESAC, as we call it, Counseling Service of Addison County. I came to SESAC after doing some work in the hub and spoke system. And for those who don't know, hub and spoke is a state model that's been put together to help combat the disease of opioid dependence. So we have spokes that are primary care providers that offer medication-assisted treatment, and also hubs, which are programs that offer daily dosing and more intensive treatment for people who are suffering with opioid dependence. So I was doing a bit of that work and came to SESAC to be the manager of the addictions department. So we work with adults in my department who are struggling with all types of addiction, from alcohol to opiates to cocaine and other issues. SESAC in general works to promote a safe community for people of all ages, from developmental services, youth and family services, and also the adult services.
Great, great. So why is counseling so important, to treating addiction?
When we think about addiction, it is a disease. There's no doubt about that anymore. Research shows us time and again that it is a chronic and persistent disease, just like any other, similar to something like diabetes or heart disease. And so when we think about those diseases, we realize that there is a medical component often with any disease, but there's also a psychological component and a lifestyle component. People who have diabetes, for example, maybe they're given insulin, but they're also coached by their doctor to take part in exercise, nutrition programming, and really changing their lifestyle so that they can be healthier in general. It's the same approach with addiction, that there is definitely a medical component to that disease, but there's also a lifestyle change, and there's also a lot of social components that have to change with that. And counseling is some of the stuff that really helps to change some of those parts of the disease that can be really detrimental to not only the person who suffers with the disease, but also loved ones and friends and family.
Great. So what does counseling at SESAC look like?
We're a pretty friendly group over there. We've got a variety of staff members, all very well trained and coached in how to deal with addiction. We understand the disease model. We understand that people are very ill when they come to us. And the way it starts is people give us a call and let us know that things aren't going well. We do a brief phone screening with them, and we bring them in as quickly as we can. And we do a full-scale assessment when they first come in. We ask about everything, family history, personal history, medical history, all those sorts of things, so that we can really build a good treatment plan for them, and then look at what type of counseling makes the most sense for this person. Would it be individual counseling? Would it be group counseling? Would they do really well with maybe some group counseling and getting connected at the turning point or 12-step groups. So we like to have counseling be just a small part of the picture in an entire lifestyle change and an entire treatment plan.
So how do you work with other organizations or agencies in the county?
Well, the tricky thing with substance abuse is that there's really strict privacy policies, and I think people who have addiction should really know this. We can't share anything private without assigned consent, or there's other times that we might share, but with other community agencies, a person has to sign a specific consent saying, I say that it's okay for you to talk with my doctor, with my DCF worker, with my probation and parole officer, with my sponsor, or with my church group, or whoever. They sign a specific consent, and once we have that, we reach out to that group and say, or that person specifically, and say, we're working with this client, and what can we do as a team to make things better for them? And what can we do as a team to help combat the symptoms of this disease and get this under control for them?
That's great. That's great. So counseling is a confidential program.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. It's we really want people to feel like you're coming into our doors, we understand addiction, and we really understand that you want to keep things private about things that happen in childhood, things that happened that kind of maybe got addiction started in your life and things like that. So we really emphasize the privacy. The important thing for people to know is that we do have restrictions to that confidentiality, which are that if we think the person's a harm to themselves or a harm to someone else, we have to report it. If we're worried that they're children or an elderly person, someone who can't take care of themselves, who's being abused or neglected, that's when we have to break our confidentiality. But for the most part, with treatment providers who are working with us, we're saying, Jane came to counseling, Jane's doing a great job, and that's the extent of it, unless the client says to us, you know, I'd really like you to share with my doctor that I don't like this specific procedure because it makes me uncomfortable because of something that happened in my past.
Right.
We only share what the client asks us to share.
Right. That's great. So speaking of working with physicians, there are now 3 providers in the county that are providing medication-assisted treatment for opiate dependency. And you work very closely with them, correct?
Yes, we do. We're very fortunate at SESAC to have a great reputation and relationship with Porter. And Porter's Bristol Internal Medicine office is offering medication-assisted treatment. We have Dr. Glick there, Dr. Wilkinson, and Dr. Porter. And they're all wonderful doctors, very well trained. They're working with this disease and really doing the best they can to offer medication that's tightly connected to the counseling service that we add to the partnership.
That's great. So you work really closely in terms of wraparound services for these patients.
Yes. Yep.
That's great. That's great. So about how many people do you work with?
I was thinking about how many people are we really working with in the community, and it's tough to say for sure because, like you said before, we're connected to the community in a lot of ways. We have clients who are at our BIM location. We have a provider who works through what's called the Blueprint program, and he is out and about in different primary care offices offering support for mental health and substance abuse issues. And then we have patients that we serve specifically at SESAC. So a rough estimate is that at our traditional outpatient office we see around 150, and that is our capacity there. Yeah. But with the work we're doing at Bristol Internal Medicine and the work that Ed Lieberman does in the community, I would say it's more upwards towards 250 probably.
Wow. That's quite a substantial number.
Right.
Yeah.
And I think that's important for people to know that they may feel alone in this disease, but there are many, many people who are struggling and reaching out for help, and we're right here to help them. That's
great. So what does treatment look like? How long might someone stay in a treatment counseling program through SESAC?
It really depends. Some people come to us and they've had recovery before. they're able to pick right back up, they're able to move forward with it. Some people have really struggled with mental health and substance abuse issues for a long time, and so we really take our time with them. Each person who comes in has an individual plan of care made, and we kind of say, let's see how we go, and in 6 months we'll see where we're at and see if it sounds like more counseling would be helpful, more groups, more connection in the community. We really play it by ear, knowing that the best practice approach with this disease, being chronic and persistent, is that we've got to manage it and we've got to keep watching it and make sure that those symptoms don't come back in a strong way and debilitate the person once again.
Right. It's really interesting that you talk about addiction as a chronic and persistent disease. I feel like that's a newer trend, that we talk about addiction as a chronic disease like diabetes or something else. How do you see that as being helpful in terms of describing addiction?
I think obviously in the past and even still now, there's a lot of stigma around addiction. There's a lot of, well, just pull yourself up by your bootstraps, get this thing under control. And we really know that the brain is altered, similar to the way the pancreas is damaged with diabetes. We really know that there's actual physical damage to the person, to their brain with addiction. And I often describe it with new clients who come in. I just say, we got to think about the disease as something separate from you. This disease has caused you to do things you might feel really guilty about, really terrible about. It may have caused you to do things that you wouldn't necessarily would have chose in a different state of mind. And you're responsible for those things. You're responsible for the choices that you make, but we've got to think of this thing as kind of like a tumor. This disease lives inside you. It's not you, it's not who you are, but it lives inside you, and just like a tumor, we've got to shrink those symptoms and take control of it, just like they would a cancerous tumor.
Yeah, that's a great way to describe it to folks who are coming in for treatment or those who are struggling with addiction. So can you talk a little bit about how addiction does change the brain or affect the brain?
Sure. We're all born with receptors in our brain. It does everything for us. And specifically in opioid treatment, we have pain receptors. So if you fall and break your leg and the doctor gives you pain medication, that is a good thing, because that pain medication tells you to kind of be sleepy, it tells your brain to relax, and it tells you to stay off your leg. What happens with addiction is that when we take too much of something, our brain is flooded with that drug or that medication, and the brain is really smart, and it says, we've got a lot of this medication that we're not making any use of in the brain. Let's build more receptors to accept the medication. Let's build more opportunity to make use of that medication. Yeah. And so the brain evolves and starts doing that, and then it takes more of that medication or drug to feel good again. Mm-hmm. So when people are saying, oh, so-and-so gets high all the time and they're addicted, most people who have addiction are not getting high anymore. What they're doing is filling those receptors so that they actually just feel okay.
Right, right.
People who have addiction, especially with opiates, when those receptors aren't filled, they have horrible symptoms similar to something like flu mixed with food poisoning. And so they'll take heroin, whatever the drug that they choose might be, and fill those receptors, not to get high, but to feel okay, so that they aren't sick.
Right. So Jessie, who's at risk for becoming addicted to opiates?
The scariest thing is that we don't know. We know that genetically there's a likelihood, if it's in your family, that you could get addiction. We also know it's environmental. We know that children who come home and they see that mom had a horrible day and mom's sitting on the couch reading a book or reading the newspaper or going to an exercise class, they see that coping. They also see that if mom or dad comes home and has a bad day and drinks a six-pack or takes pills, that's the coping strategy that would make sense. So the answer to that is really we don't know, and the important thing for people to be thinking about is this could happen to anyone at any time, and it's highly preventable by not engaging in substantial drug use or medication use.
Any sort of drug use.
Right.
Exactly. Because I've heard that we no longer talk about gateway drugs, tobacco or marijuana, but, how easy is it to become addicted to opiates, or how quick does it happen? Do you have a sense of that?
It can be very quick. It can be 1 or 2 or 3 uses for some people. And it's interesting that you brought that up. There's been a lot of talk about marijuana use and legalization and those sorts of things, and it's important to know that marijuana is addictive. I think when I was growing up, there was this kind of conversation of, oh, it's not addictive and you can use as much as you want. It's important for people to know that many of the people who are marketing these drugs are businessmen, and they're looking to make money. They're making a product that they know will be continually used. They're making a demand, and they're supplying that demand. And so whether it's heroin, marijuana, alcohol, those are money makers, and somebody's making money. And I think this kind of above the influence campaign is excellent to start thinking about. You're just pouring money into somebody's pocket when you start using, and everything in a lot of ways can become addictive.
Right. So how do you know when a patient or a client of SESAC is successful in their treatment and recovery plan?
When people come in, we ask them, what do you want to see? What's your goal here? Is it getting back into school? Is it getting a job? Is it reconnecting with your family and repairing some of those burned bridges? What to you looks like success? And for a lot of people, they come in and they just say, I want to be clean and sober. Right. And so we know when somebody's successful when they come to us and say, I've reached that goal. I'm clean and sober. I have negative urine screens. I've been to my counseling, and I'm taking my medication as prescribed, and I feel I'm a success. I'm going to my 12-step meetings, I'm reconnected with my family, and I'm right back where I want to be.
That's great. So do you have, I know you can't, obviously for confidentiality reasons, talk about any specific patients or clients of SESAC, but are there any success stories that you can share?
Oh, we have a lot of success stories, and I think that's the important thing to remember too, is we hear about the misery of this disease, right, but we don't hear a lot about the triumphant stories. And we do have a lot of people who quickly turn this around, who say, this isn't for me anymore. I'm not gonna use anymore. I'm going to reach out for help. And they come to us for counseling. And we have a lot of stories of couples who've done it together, families who've recovered together, and also individuals who've just said, maybe I'm 60 years old, but I'm ready to quit. It's not too late, and I'm going to quit.
That's fantastic. So if somebody's struggling, and if they have a loved one, what's the first step?
There's so many options here in Vermont. We've got 211 that you can just pick up the phone and dial. They have access to all the services available. That people can Google us at SESAC. And they can call us at SESAC, and they can also reach out to this new website that we're going to be talking about at the end and displaying on the screen. That really there's help everywhere if you just reach out. They can show up at the Turning Point Center. There's a lot of really great options.
That's great. Yeah, there is a lot of great options, and to put in a plug to the website, it is addictionhelpvt.com, and it will be on the screen at the end of this program. What else should we be talking about in terms of addiction, treatment, and counseling that you provide, that we have available in our community?
I think the important thing for all of us to be thinking about is prevention. We know that strangling a supply doesn't really work. Like I was talking about before, these are smart business people looking to make money. And so our youth and family department is really important in that work, helping kids at a young age, getting them above the influence. The Vermont Health Department does a lot of great programming. United Way does a lot of great funding of these types of things. And most recently, Burlington Labs has been a great supporter of all of us in our efforts. And I think the important thing for people to know is that really there's help almost anywhere if you're just walk into the right place.
Right, right, and there's really so many options in this community, particularly in Addison County, you know, be it the Turning Point Center, or, you know, even Burlington Labs, or of course SESAC, Bristol Internal Medicine, through the WIC office, which we run at the health department. We can help link people up to services. So we really do want people to reach out and get the help that they need. I do want to just switch gears slightly for a minute and talk about the fact that there are people in this community that are still using, they're not ready to quit, and that the Turning Point Center does offer a free medication called Narcan to reverse potential overdoses. Can you talk a little bit about Narcan and how it works? And
Sure. What Narcan does is if a loved one is overdosing on opiates, what Turning Point has is a nasal medication that you just spray into the person's nose, and what it really does is go in there and stops the overdose at the brain. It kind of pulls those opiates off the receptors, is a way of thinking about it. And so anyone can go into Turning Point. I think it's Wednesday morning,
right,
that Bill and Ramona run that program. You can go in and get this medication. The important thing to know is that it won't work if it's a different type of overdose, but if you come upon a friend or a loved one and you don't know what they might be overdosed on, it's not going to hurt them necessarily to try this. And if you call for emergency help, they also have access to this, but it's great to have on you so that you can help a friend in need.
right, and you're right that it is available, I think, every Wednesday through the Turning Point Center. So if people are wanting more information, they should just call the Turning Point Center of Addison County.
And the important thing to know is it's free.
It is free.
Yep.
It is free. So, you know, we're about to end this program. Is there any final thoughts from you, your work at SESAC, or where you think we're headed with preventing and treating and recovering from our opiate addiction?
I have to say, I think Vermont is doing a great job. I do some national work, and I think Vermont has done a great job recognizing the problem and doing everything they can to find providers, to find support for people who are struggling. And I think Addison County is doing a spectacular job trying to offer support to people. And whenever people are ready, we're here to help.
That's great. Thank you so much, Jessie. And, you know, that's just been so informative. I've worked with SESAC for a lot of years, and I learned something new today, so I really appreciate your time. Thank you, everyone, for watching our show today. Again, if you are interested in more information about the Addison County Committee on Opiate Addiction or our website, please check out addictionhelpvt.com. Thank you for watching.